One of them grew up around gold, skyscrapers, Secret Service agents, and the kind of access that only exists when your father controls the White House. The other was born into palaces, royal protocol, military ceremony, and a future attached to one of the oldest power structures on Earth. Barron Trump versus Prince George, billionaire dynasty versus royal bloodline. And this is where the comparison gets crazy, because this is not just rich versus rich. This is modern money versus ancient power. This is penthouses versus palaces, private luxury versus inherited institution. And by the end of this video, you are going to understand why one of these lives looks insanely expensive, but the other feels like money is not even the main flex. Round one, Mace, the homes. Let's start where this whole thing gets ridiculous. Home. Because both of these boys grew up in places that already look unreal before you even get to the security, the staff, or the power behind the walls. Barron Trump grew up inside one of the most recognizable luxury addresses in America, Trump Tower in Manhattan. Not just in Manhattan, not just on Fifth Avenue, inside the gold-heavy Trump world that has been described for years as over-the-top, hyper-luxury, and impossible to ignore. This is the kind of place where regular, expensive stops meaning anything. You are talking about a building tied to penthouse glamour, polished stone, heavy customization, and the full visual language of billionaire excess. And that was Barron's normal. Then there is the White House factor. During Trump's first presidency, Barron lived inside the White House itself. And after Barron's reported move to NYU's Washington campus in 2025, public reporting made it clear that his life was once again orbiting presidential Washington. Even if the exact living details were not fully pinned down publicly, that alone is insane. Because most college students commute from apartments, dorms, or their parents' house, Barron's entire life has been built around places that are either iconic luxury properties or the center of American executive power. And then Palm Beach enters the picture. Mar-a-Lago is where the flex gets louder. This is not just a resort setting. This is luxury wrapped in federal security conditions, huge grounds, a famous private club, political gravity, an airspace so tightly protected that when aircraft drift too close, the response can involve military jets. That is not normal rich. That is a golf club aesthetic sitting under a real security umbrella, a luxury estate with airspace drama above it. Now flip to Prince George. George's world is completely different. Barron's home life screams modern money. George's home life whispers old power. His world is tied to the royal residential network, Windsor, Sandringham, Balmoral, Buckingham Palace. And that changes everything. Because George is not just connected to one spectacular property, he is connected to a system of estates, residences, and royal spaces that were already historic before most modern nations even existed in their current form. Buckingham Palace alone is a monster of symbolism. Hundreds of rooms, administrative headquarters of the monarch, not just a building, a visual shorthand for British state power. And that is the real difference. Barron's world says, look how rich this is. George's world says, this isn't just property. This is monarchy in physical form. Barron gets modern luxury spectacle. George gets access to the architecture of inherited power. Round one, Barron looks louder. George looks older, bigger, and harder to replicate. Round two, security. Now this is where the whole comparison stops feeling glamorous and starts feeling borderline unreal. Because once you look at security, you stop asking who is richer and start asking who is living inside the more untouchable machine. Barron's security reality is not internet hype. It is structural. He is the son of a sitting U.S. president. That means his life is wrapped around serious federal protection. Not influencer security, not celebrity bodyguards, real presidential-grade security conditions. The kind where movement, location, invisibility all become part of a larger system. And we already know how active that system can get around Trump properties. Recent reporting around Mar-a-Lago's no-fly zone showed that the protective environment there is not symbolic. It is active. Planes drift too close, and the response is immediate. So when you picture Barron's life, do not picture rich kid with guards. Picture a young man whose environment can overlap with real presidential-level federal protection. That is a completely different category. Even his day-to-day public visibility has always felt insulated. His name carries weight. His position changes the room. And whether he is on a campus, at a family property, or near a high-security event, he moves through a world where the security logic is built first and everyone else adjusts around it. That is modern state-linked protection. But George's situation is even stranger. Because George is not just being protected as a child of status, he is being protected as a future king. And that changes the temperature of everything. Even his school choice has become a national conversation. Not because picking a school is exciting, because whichever school takes him instantly becomes a security problem, a press problem, and a symbolic decision all at once. That is wild. A normal family chooses a school based on academics, commute, discipline, maybe sports. George's future school has to survive public obsession, security planning, media attention, and the fact that one day this boy may wear the crown. That means even ordinary life events stop being ordinary. And that is the royal difference. Barron is protected by the power surrounding the presidency. George is protected by the long memory of a state built around protecting the line of succession. Barron's life says, protect the president's son. George's life says, protect the future of the monarchy. That second one hits different because it is not just personal, it is institutional. Round 2, Barron is heavily protected. George feels historically protected. And that is even crazier. Round 3, travel now. Let's talk about movement, because how these two travel tells you everything about the kind of power behind them. Barron's travel world is tied directly to presidential infrastructure. And once that happens, normal luxury basically becomes irrelevant. You are not comparing him to celebrity private jets anymore. You are comparing him to the machinery that moves presidents. Air Force One is not just famous, it is one of the most recognizable power symbols on Earth. A flying command platform, secure communications, massive operational support, a whole travel ecosystem built around one family and one office. And when trips happen between Washington and places like Palm Beach, the movement does not feel like travel, it feels like a protected event. Then you add the ground side, motorcades, route control, convoy structure, the kind of movement where the cars are not just cars, they are part of a mobile protective system. That is why Barron's travel does not feel glamorous in the usual celebrity sense. It feels armored, purpose-built, like power is physically moving from one point to another. Now look at George. George's travel is less about hard modern force and more about symbolic spectacle. Royal appearances are not just transportation, they are theater, ceremony, image, continuity. When George appears at events like Trooping the Color or stands on the Buckingham Palace balcony, he is not just going somewhere, he is entering ritual. That matters, because Barron's movement says, here comes executive power. George's movement says, here comes tradition, hierarchy, and ceremony. And those are two very different experiences. Barron's travel world looks like modern systems, protected logistics, and federal muscle. George's looks like history rolling forward in public. One is command, the other is continuity. One is operational, the other is ceremonial. And somehow both are absurd. Barron travels like power. George travels like history. Round 3, draw. Because these are two different types of flex, and both are crazy. Round 4, education. This round is sneaky, because on the surface, school does not sound as flashy as estates, jets, or palaces. But once you really look at what each of these boys is being prepared for, education becomes one of the biggest separators in the entire video. Barron is at NYU, and not just at NYU. Reporting around his transfer to the Washington campus makes his current path feel even more connected to politics, leadership, and elite American networks. That matters, because his education is not just about getting a degree, it is about environment, access, atmosphere, the kinds of rooms he can enter, the kinds of people already around him, and the kind of family orbit he comes from. Barron's path feels modern, strategic, and elite. Business, politics, power proximity. He is being shaped inside the kind of system that produces high-level operators in the American world. That is not the same as ordinary higher education. That is elite world positioning. Now look at George. George's education is almost impossible to compare in a normal way because his future role is not normal. He is not being prepared to run a company. He is not being prepared to become a celebrity businessman. He is being prepared for symbolic national duty. That is a completely different burden. Yes, there is huge public speculation around where he goes next for secondary school, with Eton still one of the most talked about possibilities. But the bigger point is not the school name. It is what his education represents. Barron's education prepares him to move through elite American systems. George's education prepares him to live under permanent scrutiny, while being shaped for a constitutional role that most human beings cannot even imagine. That is why this round matters so much, because it exposes the real split. Barron's life is preparing him for elite influence. George's life is preparing him for inherited responsibility. One is being trained to move in power. The other is being trained to embody it. That is huge. Round 4, Barron gets modern elite access. George gets future monarch pressure. And honestly, that makes George's lane feel even heavier. Round 5, lifestyle, access, and daily reality. Now we get to the round people always underestimate: daily life, access. The stuff that does not always make headlines, but tells you what these lives actually feel like from the inside. Barron's biggest daily flex is not just money, it is access. He grows up around private luxury real estate, presidential proximity, federal security conditions, and one of the loudest family brands in America. That means from a young age, the normal barriers most people deal with just do not exist. Normal waiting? Gone. Normal visibility? Gone. Normal social scale? Gone. Even when he stays out of public focus, the structure around him is still elite. The buildings are elite. The family network is elite. The people in orbit are elite. The protection is elite. His life does not need to scream every second to still feel untouchable. Now, George's side takes a different route. His life is less about personal flash and more about controlled exclusivity, royal protocol, royal ceremonies, royal rules, royal spaces. That means even ordinary moments happen inside a framework that most people on Earth will never touch. And that is what makes royal access so insane. Money can buy private rooms, it can buy jets, it can buy estates, but it cannot buy inherited ceremony. It cannot buy the right to stand in royal spaces as part of the institution itself. It cannot buy being woven into the ritual language of a country. That is why George's daily reality feels so different. Barron's world is high-end access driven by money and office. George's world is high-end access driven by bloodline and continuity. And when you put it that way, you start to see why this is not a simple rich versus rich comparison at all. It is a clash between two systems. One system is based on wealth, brand, and modern influence. The other is based on dynasty, ritual, and inherited legitimacy. Both are exclusive, but they do not feel exclusive in the same way. Barron's exclusivity feels powerful. George's exclusivity feels ancient, and that second one is harder to fake. Round 5, Barron has the flex of modern elite access. George has the flex of institutional exclusivity. That one is brutal. Round 6, inheritance and symbolic power. Now we get to the round that basically decides the whole fight: inheritance. Not just money, not just assets, not just family advantage. Power that survives generations. Barron's advantage here is already enormous. He is tied to one of America's most visible business political dynasties. That means brand power, private wealth, influence, network, and a name that already opens doors most people will never even see. That is massive. And if he builds on it well, his ceiling is ridiculously high. But George's inheritance is structurally different. That is the key word, structurally. He is not just inheriting family advantage. He is inheriting constitutional significance. He is second in line to the British throne. And that means his future is connected to real institutions, real estates, real tradition, and a level of symbolic authority no billionaire family can simply purchase. Then the financial side comes in. The Duchy of Lancaster alone reported net assets of hundreds of millions of pounds in its 2025 annual report. The Crown estate sits in the low teens of billions of pounds. And even there, the point is not just the numbers, the point is the system. Barron may inherit major wealth. George inherits a framework built to preserve status, land, and symbolic power across generations. That is terrifyingly strong. Because billionaire dynasties can shrink. They can split, they can collapse, they can lose control, they can get diluted. Monarchy plays a different game. It survives through institution, ritual, adaptation, and continuity. That is why the tax and transfer side matters too. The monarchy preserves wealth and symbolism differently from ordinary families. And once you understand that, the comparison starts looking unfair. Barron's future is huge. George's future is embedded in something larger than one lifetime. That is why this round is almost not even a debate. Round 6, George, and not by a little, by 1,000 years. Final verdict. So who really wins this lifestyle war? If your definition of winning is modern luxury at full volume, gold-heavy buildings, presidential access, federal-grade protection, private world influence, and the raw force of being born into one of the loudest dynasties in America, then Barron Trump is a ridiculous answer. He represents the modern elite machine turned all the way up. He is what wealth, brand, and presidential proximity look like when they combine at the highest level. That is not normal privilege. That is amplified privilege. But if your definition of winning is a life that feels impossible to reproduce, a life attached to palaces, ritual, state theater, historic estates, national symbolism, and a future role built into one of the oldest institutions in the Western world, then Prince George takes this, because George's world is not just expensive. It is embedded. You cannot clone it with money. You cannot build it in one generation. You cannot brute force your way into it. That is why this comparison is so fascinating. Barron's life is rich, protected, modern, and powerful. George's life is rich, protected, historic, and institutionally untouchable. One feels like the peak of what modern wealth can build. The other feels like the survival of something older than modern wealth itself. And that brings us to the final truth. Barron can build, Barron can expand, Barron can multiply, but his world still belongs to the logic of fortune. George belongs to the logic of monarchy. And history has already shown us the difference between those two things. Fortunes rise, fortunes crash, families peak, families fade, but a throne survives by becoming bigger than the people who temporarily stand near it. And that is why this line still hits the hardest. You cannot bankrupt a throne. That is the difference between being born rich and being born royal. If this video changed the way you see both of these worlds, drop your vote in the comments right now. Who is really living the more untouchable life? Barron Trump or Prince George? And if you want more billionaire versus royal, dynasty versus dynasty, next generation lifestyle wars like this one, stay locked in.